Welcome to the TrueMindShifters channel. Today, we have an exciting news to share with you, so please stay tuned.
In this channel, we focus on overcoming fear, shame, and guilt to help you become your best self and to not feel alone.
We have started this journey with Eva some time ago, and we felt empowered with our cause of helping people deal with fear, shame, and guilt through our own experiences. Today, we would like to announce an incredible addition to our team that will help us share a perspective, strength, courage, wisdom of how to deal with fear, shame, and guilt through a man's eyes.
We have had this speaker on a previous Catalyst conversation, and we are thrilled to have him on a regular basis join our conversation as a Catalyst, and that is retired Lieutenant Colonel Oakland McCulloch. Thank you so much, Oak, for joining us before and to your continuation of commitment to helping others. We are thrilled to have you here.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm thrilled to be a part of this and looking forward to being, a monthly addition to the show. And because it's all about helping people be better. That's what this is all about. It should be what the world should be about, is helping everybody be the best version of themselves, whatever that is for them.
And there you are already in the first minute saying the truth bomb that is so powerful, so true, that what else are we here for if it isn't to help each other out? I really don't know.
I don't either.
Yeah. So it's incredible to have you with us. And, the last conversation we had, there were some definite call outs from people that already follow you, Oak, around some statements that you made. And one that really stuck with me and is inspiring this particular session of stories is reflection, and how you can't really grow unless you're reflecting.
Yeah.
And so we're going to tie that concept of reflection to forgiveness. And it is Father's Day weekend, and maybe there are people who don't have the best relationships with their father. I can stand up and say that's me, and that's okay. I've been navigating how to forgive that, the things that have fallen apart or not, how I haven't been heard or respected. And, but I know that we all face challenges where we might be struggling with forgiveness. People have hurt us either with shame or guilt or anger. And, it's taken a lot of reflection for myself. And I'm sure there are other examples that we have here together. But I'm curious about your perspective, Oak and Marina. When you think of self-reflection or just reflection and forgiveness, what do they mean, and how do they relate in your mind and in your heart?
Yeah, so I think that they are absolutely self-reflection and forgiveness are tied together. Because if you don't reflect on yourself to figure out what you did, because you might be the one who's done something, or you may have done something that caused somebody else to do something that is now causing the problem. So you got to reflect on it. Are you being the best version of yourself? Are you being the best person you can be? And to do that, to be that best person, you have to forgive people. That is part of being the best person you can be, is giving forgiveness. And I watched, I'm not going to take credit for this because I watched The Chosen the other night. Great show. If you haven't watched it, you need to. And they were talking about forgiveness. And, in the show, Jesus said to Matthew, you aren't in control of forgiveness. All you can do is apologize. Forgiveness is a gift from somebody else, but you got to take that first step, and you got to kind of make it make them know that, okay, I know I did wrong and I'm saying I'm sorry. Now it's up to the other person, you, me, Marina, whoever else, to say, okay, to be the bigger person and say, okay, yeah, I got it. None of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. I forgive you. And that's hard sometimes. I got it. I mean, you know, I've had times in my life where I carried a grudge and didn't want to forgive somebody because I thought I was so wronged. And when you look back on it, when you do the reflection on it, how bad was it? You know, and most of the time it's not that bad. There's some that are pretty bad, but for the most of us, if somebody wronged us, it really wasn't all that bad. You got to give the forgiveness if you want to be the best version of yourself.
It's interesting you say that, because I was listening to you and a couple of things came to mind. The first thing came to mind is, what is harder, forgive others or forgive yourself?
Wow. Yeah. Probably forgive yourself. That is probably the hardest thing that you have to do, because we disappoint ourselves. You know, when I do something that I know I shouldn't have done, or that I regret that I did, and again, nobody's perfect. We all do that. I know I disappointed not only myself, but my wife, my family, whoever else was involved. And that's hard to say, okay, you got to forgive yourself. But again, I think if you do the reflection, the self-reflection, like Eva said, then you can kind of say, okay, I'm not perfect. I'm gonna make mistakes. I just gotta admit you made mistakes. Own up to it, own it, and then move on and figure out how to get better at it so you don't make that mistake again.
But then what makes you really forgive I mean, I completely agree with you, number one. It is much easier to forgive other people than yourself, simply
Yeah.
because we're more gentle toward others peoples than ourselves. And also, and it just came to me actually, just right now. I think that since we're very little, we're taught to be more accepting of others than ourselves.
Yeah.
And I have listened once again to one of my inspirations, Brene Brown, and she's talking about that same topic, that people have a really hard time with self-forgiveness, because since we're little, we're not taught that. And I just realized that we're not taught to love ourselves. We're not taught to forgive ourselves. We're not taught that if we love and forgive ourselves, we're better people and we can give more to others because we're more accepting of ourselves. I agree with you. Self-reflection is the tool that allows us to find that medium, that gauge, right? That gives you a clarity of the situation minus the emotion. But I don't think that since we're little, we are taught and teach our children to love themselves, accept themselves, forgive themselves for mistakes they're making so they can learn from them.
Right.
I don't think it's happening.
Yeah. Well, I guess I was lucky. You know, my father used to tell me when I would mess up, and I did a lot as a kid. He'd say, okay, you did this, you were wrong. There will be punishment, and there always was. But now let's move on. You know, that's over, that's done. And I think that's one of the things that we gotta tell ourselves, because you're right, we don't get taught that as a kid most of the time. As even as adults, we don't get, that's not something that is in our repertoire, and people remind us that we need to forgive ourselves for things. We have to remind ourselves that we are not perfect. We are going to make mistakes. We're going to do things that we wish we hadn't done. Again, reflect on it, say, okay, what did I do? How can I get better at that so I don't do that again? And let's move on. Don't let that define you. Don't let something that you did be the defining moment for the rest of your life.
Bingo. This is
You know, because we're all going to make mistakes, every one of us. And that's okay. We're human, but you got to admit it and you got to deal with it. on a personal basis. Okay, why did I do that? What can I do better so I don't do that again? And then move on.
It's interesting, and I said bingo because once again, for me, the turning point was in Brene Brown book where she said, "Who you are and your actions are not the same thing."
Yeah.
To me, it was a completely unbelievable realization. I couldn't even grasp the concept at first, honestly, that who you are and your actions that don't define you. That clarity allowed me to understand that if I mess up, if I do something wrong, say something wrong, react incorrectly, right? It doesn't mean that I'm a bad person. It doesn't
No.
mean that I'm a mean person or whatnot, right? It's the particular reaction, particular emotion, particular action that happened that I need to understand, process, self-reflect, as you're saying, forgive, and move on.
Yeah, so I absolutely agree, Marina. I think, you know, our reactions are what we do is based on a couple things that are tied together. Who we are, our values, what we believe, who we want to be, you know, our goal of who we want to be. But then also, you know, you interact with other people, you interact with situations that maybe you weren't expecting. So, you know, you're thrown into a situation that just took you completely off guard, caught you completely off guard, and then you're reacting, and then you throw in emotion, that thing that we all have, and we all try to control, and not very well usually. But you throw emotion into the mix, and now you got who you think you are, the other people who they think they are, the situation you're in, and everybody's emotion. And that's what causes us to do what we do in that moment. Not always the best, because we didn't think it through. We didn't stop and think, okay, you know, because as a kid, one of the things my father taught me that I still thank him today for is that every decision you make has a consequence. Every single one. I don't care what it is. If you make a decision, there is a consequence. Some of it is good, some of it is bad. And he was always the one that would say, and he wasn't always good at it, but he always said, take a step back and think about it before you do something, because there is going to be a consequence. And the tool he gave me that helped me growing up to make good decisions is he always said, son, when you're going to make a decision, let this thought go through your mind. Do you want your mom to know that you're about to do what you're about to do? If the answer is yes, then that's probably a pretty good decision. If the answer is no, you might want to rethink that one.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So it's interesting you describe that because I've had that situation just very, very recently. And I shared with Eva offline, and I will share right now that my reaction to that situation was very different than it was a year ago or before.
Yeah.
Because the way that I treat the situations more from the perspective of, okay, so this is a learning coming. It's trying me out to see how much I progressed and what I'm learning, what I'm exploring, what I'm becoming, right? Because
Yeah.
as you said, we learn every day to be our better selves if we want to. So that's how I treat these types of situations. And I was so excited to share with Eva that my reaction was so different than before. It was so much better. I felt so much better. And it was exactly what you said. I stopped and I thought, I didn't think about what my mother would think, right? Because that's not something I knew, right?
Yeah.
But I was thinking differently. I was thinking from the perspective of the situation. What was the cause? This is my tool. This is what I've learned so far.
That's it.
What is the reason for that situation? And that allowed me to emotionally disconnect and be able to be factual, calm, and assertive in my reaction, my external reaction, I would like to say, to the situation.
Yeah.
I also understood that I still have a lot to learn because internally I still had a lot of emotion. And
Well,
that's
and I don't think you can take emotion completely out of it. I mean, we're human and
Yeah.
we have emotions, but I think, you know, you hit it right on the head, Maria. Our goal should be to grow every day to get a little bit better at disarming situations that we aren't comfortable in or that we disagree with. And the way you do that is you be factual, you take as much emotion out of it as you can. You know, you actually listen to other people and then ask questions. I've always found questions are the best way to deal with something that you're not comfortable with. Because then not only are you kind of slowing down, now they got to stop and think about what it is that they want to answer you with. So they got to slow down a little bit, just like you do. It gives you kind of both of you kind of a chance to take a breath and step back. But then also, you know, they get to say their piece, and then you get to say your piece, and then we can figure out where to go from there. But at least you've given somebody a chance to say their piece. And sometimes that's all they want. Sometimes that is all they want, is to be able to say what it is that they believe. And then we can move on from that. But yeah, it really is. I mean, we gotta really stop and think about what it is, who we want to be and how we got to get there, and who we can affect and help along the way. Because again, like we've said here several times during our conversations, it's got to be about other people, not just yourself. If it's only about yourself, sorry, why are we here? I just don't understand that thought, that mindset. But there's people out there like that.
what helps me to forgive, I'm going to share right now, and then I also would like to ask Eva for her perspective.
Yeah.
What I have learned very recently, I read a book by Anita Moorjani called Dying to Be Me. After I read that book, it resonated with me so well, I think on the DNA level. And in that book, Anita Moorjani is saying that we're all souls that come here on this earth for experience. Whether it's a positive experience and we're good people, or it's a negative experience and we're bad people, right? Like killers and other, right?
Right.
We're still all souls of love. And because we are souls and we come here for experiences in order to learn whatever we need to learn in that particular experience, we're all the same. To me, it was such an incredible revelation that allowed me to understand that we're all the same. We're part of love. Our souls are part of eternity, which is called love. And because of that, there is no good or bad people. We're all the same. We come for different experience, and that's my perspective now. I absolutely adopted it. I believe in it greatly. I'm not saying everybody has to believe what I believe. I'm just sharing what helps me.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, if someone is negatively impacting me in a particular moment, I don't feel anger anymore. I don't feel I don't feel any negative, strong emotions against the person. I feel disappointment on the situation, and I feel sad for even having that situation because it's so destructive. There is zero productivity. There is zero opportunity. And that's my tool that I'm sharing.
Yeah.
It's easy for me to forgive now because that's what I believe. I did not forgive everyone yet. I just started practicing that particular approach. So, but I'm truly, truly in admiration of that. What about you, Eva?
Ooh, that's a lot. So I want to just acknowledge how easy it is. And I believe it's easy to be angry and hurt and resentful. And when people do something to you that it just hurts, right? And I have experiences in personal relationships where I'm very, again, we kind of go back to it's being human has emotion, right? And so we might be hurtful to each other or irritated with each other. And then that has an effect, just like Oak's father said, everything has a cause and effect, right? And that's stated in many other philosophies as well, cause and effect. So I'm sitting here thinking about the times that I have sat with and held on to almost like an unhealthy attachment to my anger, which then simmers long enough and it starts to taste like resentment, right?
Yeah.
If it were a stew, it's like I'm cooking my own resentment stew, and that's hard to let go of.
It
And
is.
I've done that with my husband. I have he wouldn't do this or wouldn't do that. And my reaction, again, somewhat because I wasn't seeing what do you do when someone doesn't meet your expectations or live up to their commitment or their promise, or you're pulling more weight than they are. And it's not balanced or equal or fair. And this could be in a marriage, it could be in a family, parent, child, etc.
The workplace.
The workplace, yes, coworkers that don't show up and give their part, and you're working your behind off and they're just kind of floating by, or they kiss upper management's behind and they don't work as hard, but they've politically played the game. And how do you not have negative emotion and anger and resentment for that and forgive, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, as we're talking about all this, I'm sitting in this space of I understand and feel, as much as I can be very happy, very fun loving, very caring, and all these things. But there's a part of me that's danced with this horrible part of life around hurt and anger and resentment. And it's taken me a long time to even own and acknowledge and to sit in and say that I'm angry or hurt and resentful, instead of just lashing out and being angry and being resentful or being hurt, right? So I just want to sit with that for a minute, because I think there are many people who aren't even able to let go of the hurt. And even though they may have, and I love how you called that out, Oak, they may have been playing into the situation to begin with, right? They may have a hand in what is happening. And like, I'll look at myself, and the moment you said that, I started going, oh my gosh, what are the things I did that may have triggered a negative response from one of my family members or my husband, right?
Yeah.
And in some cases, I drew a boundary. In other cases, I was irritated because they didn't do what they said they do, or they made something harder, or they didn't do a good job. And now I'm repeating myself, right? That's a whole other, I'm sure people can relate when people haven't
Sure.
moved up, right? So being in that space, I feel like maybe the word space is important. You're in this space of anger, but something has to happen to help you stop. And otherwise, you can live your whole life attached to being pissed off and angry and resentful and hurtful. You can spend your whole life.
Many do. Many do. Yeah. And I think you're absolutely right. And I think, again, we all have those feelings. It's how you deal with those feelings is what it gives you the outlook that you want in life. Do you want to be that person who's always mad, always angry, always resentful? Or do you want to be somebody who's trying to make a difference in this world by making people better, including yourself? And I think, again, that's mindset. You know, you gotta make that, at some point, you have to decide what it is you want and how you want to react to things. And look, I got it. I mean, there's times I've been hurt. And I haven't dealt, and I didn't deal with it in the best way. I think I'm better at it today than I used to be. Just from reflection and making an effort to grow a little bit as a person. Um, that, but none of us do it real well. If you're hurt, I mean, hurt is a real thing. You know, whether it actually hurts you or not, if you perceive that you've been hurt, you've been hurt. Now, you have to decide how you're going to react to that and where you're going to move from this point on. And too many times I see people who just, they throw up the wall. They get hurt, they throw up the wall and say, okay, I'm hurt. I don't want to deal with this. And so those are the people who then internalize it, live it. That's who they are until they finally decide they want to deal with whatever it was that hurt them. You know what, my wife and I have we have a great relationship. But and she's the one who's kind of initiated all this. She has no problem if I do something that she doesn't like, or she didn't expect me to do, or she has no problem saying, hey, is that really how we want to do this? And she calls me out on it. And I've started doing it with her a little bit. Not as much as she does with me, but I think that's part of it, is that you just got to say, if somebody hurts you, you got to make it known that somebody has done something that hurt you, that you disagree with, that you that isn't isn't setting the environment right between you and them.
You know,
Because if you don't tell them, they may not even know.
I have something to say on that. I actually see it a little bit differently, if that's okay.
Sure.
And that was an interesting conversation with one of my oldest friends. And I really liked what she said, and I agree with that personally. The conversation was about the fact if we would like to basically share with people, right, how we feel, and if someone hurt us, and how that should be done, and what is the point, and whether it's worth it or whatnot. And I really liked what she said, and I actually do carry that in my heart now. She said that she thinks that if this is an important person for you, if it's an important relationship, then it is absolutely worth bringing up being heard. If it's someone who is not, then it's not.
Yeah.
And at first I disagreed, and then when I thought a little bit more on that, I realized that she's right. Simply because there are a lot of people and a lot of situations that will hurt us, and they wouldn't even know about it.
Yeah.
Or they wouldn't do it on purpose. It's whatever is happening in their life. What's the point of, putting it out there? No point.
Yeah.
I also realized something very recently on top of what she said. I realized that usually, and I think I read it somewhere, but I can't quote from where, so I'm not going to. Happy people don't make other people feel bad. They don't hurt other people.
Yeah.
So if someone is hurting you right now or before, those are usually people who are not happy. Something is not right with their life. And therefore, what is the point of bringing it to their attention?
Yeah, I guess my only point, because I mean, that's certainly a point of view, and I'm sure a lot of people have that point of view. I guess my only point of view on that, my personal take on that, is that if you're trying to help that person be the best person they can be, just like you're trying to be the best person you can be, then maybe they don't even know that they're doing something that is not good, that's not helping other people. And by bringing it to their attention, maybe they can then reflect on it and say, okay, how do I get better at this? I'm not one that thinks that you got to be mean about it. But you got to be honest. And if you don't tell somebody that they're doing something that you don't like, that is making you feel uncomfortable, or that you feel isn't the best person they could be, that, again, they may not even know they're doing it, or they may know they're doing it, but they may not know how it's affecting other people. And unless you say something in a nice way, then they may not ever know. And so then they can't change. They can't be a better person. That's my only take on it. I agree. Do you want to say stuff to people just to make them feel bad? Absolutely not. But I think if they can, depending on where they are in themselves, if they can stop and think about it rationally, then maybe you can help somebody. If they're not to that point, then maybe you're absolutely right. If you know they're not to that point where they can step back and reflect and say, okay, maybe that's not what I should be doing, then is it worth it? I don't know.
I'm curious about if either of you have had to cut anyone out of your life because they were just repeatedly too harmful, too hurtful, not healthy, not respectful. And does cutting someone out of our life exclude us from forgiving them?
I have.
Yeah, I have, and I don't have a problem.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna name names or
Yeah.
situations,
Okay.
but I have had to say, okay, I've tried and I've tried and I've tried, and that just, having them in my life is not what helps make me a better person.
Mm.
Now, to answer the second part of your question, does that mean I can't forgive them? Absolutely not. I mean, I'm not sure. Maybe I need to go back and think about that. But it doesn't preclude me from forgiving them. It just means if they have already demonstrated that they don't care, that their actions are not good, they're not getting good consequences in this relationship with me repeatedly, then why do I put myself through that? As long as I've tried and tried and tried, at some point you just got to say, okay, at least for me, but I don't think that means you can't forgive them. It just means that you just got to push them out of your life so that you can live a better life, be a better person, don't have to deal with the negative consequences and negative situations that they put you in.
I have. And I can absolutely tell you it was very painful.
Yeah.
It
It
was
is.
horrifically painful at first for a very long time, until once again that huge shift started happening in my life, as you know, Eva, and you've been a part of it in the early development, I would like to say. This is when I looked at that situation, and as Oak stated, I realized that I was repeatedly hurt in that situation, in that relationship, and it was just mounting amount of pain that I was going through. And so when I did that, I didn't do it with any type of resentment or anger or conversation. I just stopped. And I found it to be the best way, very civil, but stopped, right? And what I realized a few things. Number one, that the relationship that I had is no longer part of my development. Therefore, instead of having it very close to me, I just shifted it further away from me as far as possible, right? To the very faint kind of an acquaintance level. And that was number one. And recently, I also realized that that relationship was an amazing relationship at this particular point of life. And I'm super grateful for everything in that relationship. But as of right now, it's no longer serving anyone. Therefore, it is okay to let go. Let go.
You know, and that's a great point, Marina. You know, it was a great relationship where both people got something out of it, helped each other. Then it got to the point where it wasn't. That doesn't mean that somewhere down the road, it may go back to being a great relationship. You know, they may grow a little bit, you may grow a little bit, and maybe at some point you can come back together and help each other, and it becomes a good relationship, which then goes back to Eva's question. Should you forgive them? Absolutely, you should. Again, I think, you know, very few things, and again, I can't say that I always practice what I preach in here, because I haven't always forgiven people as quickly as I should, and still working on some of them. But I think, you know, that goes back to just because you decide you don't want them in your life on a daily basis or on a regular basis, doesn't mean that you can't forgive them for whatever it was that caused that rift to happen. But don't close that door completely. I don't, you know, that I guess that would be my only suggestion, is don't close that door completely, because obviously there was something in the past that you had in common that was good for each of you. And somewhere down the road, that may happen again.
I love that. And it's interesting. One other father figure in my life he had a lot of issues, and he would be very volatile growing up to my mother. And there was a lot of hurt and anger. There were substance abuse issues, alcoholism. And so witnessing that, I grew up with a lot of resentment and hate even towards him. But as he got older, he changed, and he became someone I was very close with.
Yeah.
And so, to your point, people can change, people can shift. I wouldn't say it, and I wouldn't
We all do.
right, and I wouldn't have this commitment to helping people shift their minds and this channel the way I do if I hadn't witnessed it myself.
Yeah.
And seen it so close to me as well. So I know it's possible for people who have hurt other people to shift and to become more self-aware. And that's what I did see with him. He became much more concerned as my mother started to decline in her health. He became very focused on what can I do to help her.
Yeah.
Whereas when he was younger, he didn't have that mindset.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, I never was able to ask him what shifted, but I remember they used to just spend a lot of time together, and I'd ask, aren't you bored? And he said, no, Eve, I've got your mom.
Yeah.
And that was one of the key conversations where I was like, wow, this is different. He started to shift his way and a value and appreciation for my mom. And then that made me appreciate him more for who he was and what he was doing in her life. And then it created like a virtuous cycle. So he and I became much closer
Sure.
after that.
Sure.
But
So I obviously I don't know the situation, but here's my guess, is that he realized that he wasn't a very nice person, and he forgave himself, and he decided he was going to be better, and he figured out how to be a better person.
yes,
Because that's what it's all about. I mean, it really is. We all have choices. We are individuals. We all can make decisions about what we want to do, how we want to do them, what we don't want to do, how we want to interact with people, treat other people. And we just got to get to the point where we're willing to want to do good things. We're not always going to do good things, even if we want to, but we should have that desire to always do good things. And if you get to that point, and for the things that you do that aren't good, forgive yourself and figure out why that happened and how to get better at it so you don't do that again, and move on. And so my guess is that's what happened. He realized he was not a nice person forgave himself, figured out how to be a little bit better, and got better at it. You know, we're all, because again, we're all human. We're all going to do bad things. We just got to figure out how to get better so we don't do it again.
Yes.
Right, Oak. And that's exactly kind of what I was thinking as you were talking. Because you mentioned that you, and it makes perfect sense that you're still on path of forgiving some of those people. What I was thinking about myself. I know for sure I hurt people. For sure. Unintentionally, or almost always. Sometimes I hurt them intentionally. Used to.
Yeah. We've all done that.
Used to, right? Exactly.
Anybody who says they haven't's lying. I'm sorry. We're human. We all have that ability in us. Yeah.
Exactly. And therefore, if we know that we can and did and sometimes do unintentionally right now, right, hurt people, what right do we have not to forgive them for hurting us?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and it goes back to that thing that I talked about on The Chosen, you know, forgiveness is a gift, and you have to decide to give that gift. Now, you know, people have to apologize, they have to own what they did, whatever in your mind is the thing that's going to decide that you give them that gift. But it's you. If you are holding something against somebody else, that's the gift you have, is to give them forgiveness. They can't forgive themselves for that. They can forgive themselves for what they did, but they can't get forgiveness from you unless you give that gift. So think about that, you know, and that's made me think. It really has. And again, there's people that I probably need to go back and ask for forgiveness. And certainly there are people that I need to forgive. I need to give that gift to. Look, it's right here. It's all mindset. Be the person that is willing to forgive somebody. And even if you got to make the first move, even if they didn't apologize to you, forgive them. And the weight of all that lifts off you, and it's just amazing how much better you feel. Even if they don't change, even if you didn't help them as a person, at least you tried, and at least now you're not carrying that burden of guilt and resentment and all those things that come along with anger, and that's all gone. And I'm getting better at it. I'm not perfect by any stretch, but I'm getting better at it.
Nobody is.
And my wife is a huge catalyst for me. You know, I learn a lot from her. I really do. Again, why she married me, I have absolutely no idea. But I'm thankful she did every day, because I learned something from her almost every day.
I would like to share another tool which completely changed my life last February. It's called Ho'oponopono. It's a real tool, and it's widely known around the world, and it's translated in other languages. And therefore, we will put a link to the YouTube version in English. I started practicing it in February of 2022, and you cannot imagine what an incredible power a Ho'oponopono has.
There's a beautiful song that I found as well. And Marina, that is the most powerful, beautiful thing that you could have said right now. Like, thank you. It's a practice. It's a ritual of forgiveness. You sit down and heal together, and it's so beautiful. So I'll send you the song, because it's just one of my favorite songs. And I'm
we'll
so
put it
glad.
here.
We'll put it here. We'll put it here. What an incredible conversation. Again, thanks to Oak for joining us and being a recurring catalyst and to balance out the conversation. We hope that hearing these three different voices, one of the voices resonates with you, or maybe all three, and the collective helps you find your way through navigating, overcoming fear, shame, and guilt. Thank you for joining us. You're not alone, and we send you support, empowerment, and love.